Good evening, one and all. I'm Shivani Patil. On behalf of Bharathidasan Institute of Management, I gladly welcome you all to Athenaeum 2020. Athenaeum is a research conference organized by Center for Contemporary Management and Research, the research wing of BIM Trichy. Athenaeum aims to take contemporary research into management practice and vice versa. The key theme of Athenaeum 2020 is globalization versus localization in the age of disruption. Welcome to the panel of the day on entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem. Fostering entrepreneurship and startups has become a global phenomenon. The connected ecosystem comprising of venture capitalists, research parks, incubation centers, etc. have been evolving at different paces and standards across the world. Aspiring global entrepreneurs face glocalization challenges to efficiently serve in divergent global markets, besides emerging risks due to geopolitical factors or trade restrictions. Startup companies also suffer to scale beyond national or cultural boundaries as their local need-triggered business ideas and models may be irrelevant in global context. Consequently, how to develop globally replicable niche business ideas or models remains an inadequately unaddressed question. With this brief introduction on the panel theme, I would like to introduce the chair of the panel, Professor Satyajit Majumdar. He is the professor at the Center for Social Entrepreneurship of School of Management and Labor Studies at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. He has 39 plus years of experience in consulting and corporate training in the area of entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, growth strategy, CSR, and SHRM. As the member of boards of studies, academic councils, advisory and steering boards of universities, technology incubators, and other organizations, he regularly participates in policy discussions related to academics and practice. He is also a distinguished alumnus of SGS Institute of Technology and Science, Indore. Professor Majumdar has many research papers and award-winning case studies to his credit published in national and international journals and edited volumes. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Shivani. Thanks for this wonderful introduction. I feel happy to be here.
Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Vaitheeswaran K, widely referred to as father of e-commerce in India, the co-founder of Again Drinks. Mr. Vaitheeswaran is a serial entrepreneur founding India's first e-commerce company fabmart.com in 1999, later rebranded as India Plaza, and Fab Mall, India's first integrated retail company, which was later acquired by Aditya Birla Group and rebranded as the More chain of stores. The More chain of supermarkets has been acquired by Amazon in 2018. Mr. Vaitheeswaran authored one of the best-selling books, Failing to Succeed, the story of India's first e-commerce company. He is a member of several organizations, including TIE Bangalore chapter as a key contributor in Retail SIG. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Very glad to be here.
It's a pleasure, sir. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Govind Kumar. He is the founder and director of Seaports AI, which was ranked among top 20 AI startups in 2019 by CIO Review magazine. He has over 2 decades of professional experience in multinational and Indian companies in the area of strategy, artificial intelligence, risk management, and quality. He has authored a best-selling book on changing preferences of Indian customers. He is also an alumnus of BIM Trichy. I'm so sorry for the sound. I heartily welcome all the panelists. Although Govind Kumar sir will be joining us shortly, it is our pleasure today to have you all here. If there are any questions from the audience during the discussion, please post it in the chat window. It will be addressed during the end of the session. Without any further ado, I would like to call upon the chair, Professor Satyajit Majumdar, to start with the discussion.
Thanks, Shivani. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, and thanks, BIM Trichy, for bringing us together in this session. I feel extremely happy to be a part of this discussion session. Of course, I have a technological challenge. My video is not working. Video camera is reluctant to cooperate, but I'll make sure that I'm present all the time. I'm present. We have extremely knowledgeable and experienced expert speakers with us. Mr. K. Vaitheeswaran, you just introduced him and he's here. I feel really happy. I've seen his profile and extremely knowledgeable and valuable for our discussion. So I feel honored. I feel happy to be with him in this session. And we also have Mr. Govind Kumar, who will, I'm sure, who will join very soon. We'll start our conversation, and meanwhile, I think he'll be joining us very soon. And so, what I have 90 minutes with me. Out of that, probably we have consumed about 6 minutes or so. I have amazing audience because I know the audience profile. I can see the names on the screen. We have students of BIM Trichy, we have faculty members, we have alumni from Trichy, we have professionals, we have faculty from other B schools, and of course, PhD scholars and students from other B schools. And really, we have very wide array of participants in this, and I'll try to make the things interesting for all of us. And I try to see that every stakeholder who is participating in this discussion have something to take away from this discussion. I'm confident about that. So the job before me is to engage with the panel members to get maximum out of their wisdom, to create value for all the stakeholders, and I'll try to do my best to ensure that some important aspects of the theme are taken up. So what I did is I have picked up a few keywords from the theme under the title of this session, Entrepreneurship and Startup. I think what is interesting to discuss in this session is the global economy, even if we are not discussing the classical meaning of global economy, but we are going to touch the elements of global economy. Then the second keywords which I picked up from this session is entrepreneurship and socio-economic development of India. So how do we contribute to the wealth creation, to the market, etc. And the third is probably, which could be interesting to all of us, is business model disruption. I'll try to see that we touch upon these critical themes, keywords, which I've explained in the form of keywords, are touched upon. So since I have only one panel speaker with me as of now, so without any further delay, I'll request Mr. Vaitheeswaran to first help us to understanding the setting of the global economy, which seem to be in the current context, seem to be, I'm just putting a proposition at this point of time, about the importance of technology and know-how. So my question to you, sir, but I'm making a proposition and asking you to respond to that. Basically, traditionally, we have been seeing that the market is to be, if I put it in a little mathematical form, market is to be on x-axis, and the technology is to be on the y-axis. That is, we create technology for the market. Probably in last 20 years or maybe 15 to 20 years, is the role reversed? When technology has become independent, that has become the x-axis, and market has become y-axis, and that's where the real game-changing phenomena has been happening. So, how do you comment on this proposition? And market following up technology.
So, Professor Machan, thank you again, once again, and BIM Trichy and everybody else for having me here. So let me respond to your question. I think it's an interesting question, and a lot of the answer really depends on perception at which we are looking at. What's really happened over the last 2.5 decades is that there's been a remarkable change in technology, and it dominates our every waking moment. I mean, all of us, if you're not asleep, we are on our phone. Yeah. And thereby, we believe that technology is driving our lives, which is true. But as far as business is concerned, I'm not too sure that the axis change, as you have suggested, has really happened. And the reason for that is, except for a few businesses which are born on technology, born because of the technology, and are able to disrupt and grow because of the technology. So, for example, let me take one very interesting example. Let's talk a company, let's say Google. A company
Yeah.
like Google is essentially a tech company. They started as a search engine, and
Yeah.
their success was on growing the search engine and then the other elements that they evolved because of the tech.
Yeah.
One of the products that they grew out of this technology is Google Maps, which essentially helps us find our way.
Yeah.
Now, but that's all they did. They built a great technology in terms of Google Maps and mapped the whole world, and therefore, anywhere we are, we know where we are.
Right.
But an application of the technology happens with, say, a company like, say, Uber, which then takes Google Maps and then
Yeah.
takes a simple automobile and mixes both together and then creates a layer which then disrupts our lives.
Correct.
We now, wherever we want to go in any city, we land in, we walk out of the airport, we fire up the Uber app, and quickly it locates, sets itself to the local map, and then we're able to call a car and go wherever we want. We don't even need to know the city or the location or even the language.
Yeah.
Now, the question there is, in a company like Google, has technology disrupted the business? Yes, because their business is based on technology. But in a case like Uber, which is an extension of a technology created by Google, which is the maps,
Yeah.
I'm still not sure. I mean, while you've used technology to drive the business, the reality, it's the business model that has been disrupted. It's not the technology has disrupted
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the short answer, therefore, to your question is, and most businesses, if you go back and list down, let's say the top 100 or top 500 corporations in the world, or the top 100 companies in India,
Yeah.
just a very few of them would be tech companies. Most of them would be non-tech companies. They continue to be non-tech companies. I mean, tech companies will be what? Still 5%, less 10%, not 50%.
Yeah.
And the reason, therefore, is it's fairly easy conclusion. While it seems as if technology has become the dominant force, my
Hmm.
response would still be that I think business continues to dominate, and technology is just rapidly moving and enabling the way business models are changing. But it's the business which is still the essence and not tech.
Okay, fine. So, in fact, my another question would be exactly something what you just said. It's not the technology which disrupts, right? The business model disrupts. I think that's the interesting point. And since we have a variety of audience in this session, so my question is the whole narrative of disruption. We often try to sort of grapple with. There's some noise in the background. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, my question is the whole narrative of the business in terms of disruption. And we have seen Clayton Christensen talking volumes on that. We have a wonderful narrative by him. So, in one sense, I would like to sort of propose one statement and ask you to sort of comment on that. What I said is the market trying to create is the market is getting constructed
Actually, I'm not able to hear you, Professor. I completely lost you, so I've not heard you. I'm not able to hear anything.
I think we lost Satyajit, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. Hopefully he'll log in, so we'll wait.
Yeah. On the chat window, there's a question. Until Satyajit sir rejoins, can we proceed with it? It's for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
so Srinath has asked, sir,
Mhm.
could you please elaborate on the entrepreneurial venture that you went through until Satyajit sir joins?
Okay, so I'm not sure whether he's asking about all my startups or the current one. So let's talk about the current one. The current venture that I'm working on is it's a range of beverages called Again Drinks, and it's a unique product that we created after working for 3 years in the development of the product. It's actually the only beverage in the whole that has no refined sugar, no preservatives, no
Yeah.
artificial colors, no flavors. Yet it is ambient and does not have any has 90 days shelf life. So it's a fairly unique product. We filed patents for a while. And just 2 months back, we now started shipping all over India. So now anybody in the country can actually go online at Amazon and buy the product. And so it's a new product. It's in the FMCG space. I don't have much background in the FMCG space, which makes it far more exciting. So to be able to create a product like that with zero experience and file patents for it has been fairly satisfying. I think Professor Satyajit is back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm sorry. Really. This technology is not cooperating me. We were discussing about technology, but facing a lot of issues. My connection is unstable. But certainly, I'll try to be present now. Hopefully, things are okay. My video is yet not working. So, yeah, I was just recalling the statement. What you said is it's business model which disrupts, not the technology. And maybe we agree with that. But nevertheless, what I was trying to say is the business getting constructed around technology? Is the new market segments created around technology? And that's how the business growth we are seeing happening. So, Mr. Vaitheeswaran, what is your view on that? And then maybe we can take a few issues of entrepreneurship around that. How do you visualize technology, intersection
Sure.
of technology and market? Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, the fact is certainly there are a whole lot of new businesses that are coming in that are being driven because of technology. Most of them have taken birth because of the technology. So, for example, data analytics is a very first thing that would come to mind
Yeah.
is the access to technology over the last 2 decades has created a humongous amount of data, consumer data, consumption data,
Yeah.
and analyzing the data for insightful action allows businesses to predict how customers are likely to behave, how suppliers are likely to behave, and
Yeah.
then take predictive actions based on the data.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at data analytics, therefore, as a science, is it the business that is getting disrupted or is it technology that is driving the business? In this specific case, it's exactly the other way around to what I. It is clearly
Yeah.
technology which is driving the business because if you did not have access to the technology, then the business wouldn't exist. So my
Right.
point was that 90% of the businesses are still non-dependent on technology, but they
Mhm.
use technology to make their businesses more efficient.
Yeah.
However, the fact is, if you suddenly imagine a scenario where all the technologies just disappeared,
Yeah.
those businesses would still continue. They would
Right.
go back to more primitive ways, but continue their business. So,
Correct.
if there was no retail technology, would all the stores shut down? No, they'll simply
Yeah.
go back to what they were doing and raise a bill by hand
Mhm.
and sell the product.
Yeah.
But will data science exist? Will the artificial intelligence exist? No, they won't.
Right.
And hence, I think the question really depends, the answer really depends on what kind of businesses. Some businesses are dependent on the technology. Most
Yeah.
businesses use technology to make it better. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a very crisp, straightforward answer. So the question is, since we are talking about this ecosystem now, an ecosystem seem to be more towards making technology possible, or I would say enabling environment for the technology. I think it looks like the ecosystem is currently taking us towards that. So the question is, when we see this context, I'll come to specific questions to the ecosystem a little later, but I'm referring to the context in which we are assessing existence of the business, and that's probably where entrepreneurship is also important for us to be discussed. If I define context for the sake of this discussion, maybe the circumstances, the conditions, the situation, the environment. So how do you created businesses, and you have created very successful businesses. So maybe from your experience, would you explain us how did you assess the context for your enterprise creation, and how as an entrepreneur should assess the favorableness or challenges of the context while he or she thinks about creating an enterprise?
Professor, I've actually thought about this question fairly deeply over the last 20 odd years that I have been an entrepreneur myself.
Okay.
And a large part of this is actually discussed and answered in my book.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a fairly crisp, short answer to this. What I've
Yeah.
felt is uh, an entrepreneur fundamentally, at least somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
is fundamentally a problem solver, which means somebody who solves problems, finds
Yeah.
solutions.
Yeah.
And therefore, the fundamental requirement for somebody wanting to create an enterprise or on her own,
Yeah.
what he or she should be looking for is there an interesting problem that I would like to solve?
Right.
And once you get your teeth onto the problem and you think it's a problem that excites, I mean, you must be excited to find a solution. The reality is there are millions of problems in the world and none of us can solve or even attempt to solve
Hmm.
many of them.
Yeah.
But if you can pick one of them saying, I'm passionate about solving this problem,
Hmm.
I think that's the first big step to creating an enterprise.
Yeah.
The second step to that is that once I have a problem, can I find a solution to this problem?
Yeah.
The third question is when I find a solution, is it a totally new solution or a totally new problem, in which case the solution is obviously new, or existing problem but a new solution because there are already solutions existing in the market, which in
Yeah.
which case the fourth step is there are solutions existing in the market, but is my solution better or worse?
Yeah.
Institutions like BIM would call this competitive analysis, but the reality is all you're doing is I have a solution, I have a product or a service. Is
Hmm.
my product or service better than somebody else, which is essentially competition mapping? And the
Yeah.
last step to that is once I do that analysis, am I confident that I will get enough customers to come and avail of my solution by
Yeah.
paying for it repeatedly?
Yeah.
These are the five things that I have. I mean, if you stay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you've done all of this, then I think you're ready to solve an enterprise. And everything else that is related to it, which is funding, people, that really is a matter of detail. If you
Yeah.
don't solve these five problems, the rest are irrelevant. If you solve these five, the rest will fall in place.
Yeah. No, precisely. So my question is actually circumventing these elements. That's precisely I call as a context specificity.
Yeah.
I would like to know from your experience, uh, how did you understood the fundamentals of the problem? Precisely that's what I'm hitting at. What is your process of engaging with the problem? Did you do several trial and errors? Did you hit the problem straight away? Did you see the economics of the problem? So, what is the process you used as an entrepreneur? And I believe there is an entrepreneurial angle. Every entrepreneurial angle matters. So, the same problem may be solved differently by different entrepreneurs because the way he or she articulates about the problem is something which is very fundamental to the uniqueness which you just referred to. So, my question is through your experience, we would like to learn, the audience would be benefited out of your experience. What was your process of searching for problem, addressing the problem, identifying the problem, sensing the opportunity in the problem, etc.?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you two examples. One is the first venture which I started in '99, which is the first e-commerce company in India. At the time, e-commerce didn't exist. And I'm also going to give an example of Again Drinks, which is my latest venture, because the perspectives, the answer to your question in both cases is totally different.
Okay.
So in the first case, in '99, it so happened, I used to work for Wipro at the time in '96, '97. I came across a very fascinating incident where I reached this website. I'm not going to tell you the full story, but it's all there in the book.
Yeah.
But essentially, I came across this website called Amazon.com, and I was very fascinated with and they were selling books. This was in '97, '98.
Yeah. Right.
And I was very fascinated by this concept that somebody could be selling books to me sitting far away in the USA.
Yeah.
And remember, this was the late '90s, and we had all grown up thinking that the only way you can shop is when you go to a shop and see a shopkeeper and buy from him or her.
Yes.
And suddenly, this whole concept of buying from a shop where I would see the shopkeeper fascinated me. I must tell you as an aside that 23, 24 years later, it is still one element of e-commerce that continues to fascinate me, which is that you're able to shop from a shopkeeper, but you'll never see the shopkeeper.
Yes.
So I got so fascinated by it. I said, look, here is this thing. And at that time, I was not thinking. So this problem solution, something is my learning over the last 20 years.
Right.
At that time, I had just been a corporate executive. I didn't have a clue about being an entrepreneur. I was just excited by this concept. And thereby, a few years later, which is a couple of years later, when I was talking to a group of friends, and we were in different steps in our career, working for different companies. And all of us, the only thing common at that time amongst all of us is the fact that we were all bored with our jobs.
Okay.
We said, look, we have to do something else. And what we have done is, we are enjoying what we are doing, but we are doing the same thing for so many years.
Yes.
So we said, let's do something on our own. Let's do, at the time, the words like startup, technology, disruption, all of that didn't exist. It's all developed later.
Yes.
All we said is, can we do something together? And, like I was fascinated by this concept. My other friends were also considered with different elements of e-commerce. So we said, let's do e-commerce. At the time, we were not looking for a problem. We were not looking for a solution. We were looking nothing. We just said, let's do e-commerce. In other words, I think we were clueless about what we were getting into. We were being naive. We were being clueless. And I think to some extent, we were being foolhardy. In fact, in my book, one of the things that I've said, 2 things that an entrepreneur must be to be successful is that the person must be brave and stupid, right? Otherwise you can't succeed as being an entrepreneur. So in that element, we were being less brave and more stupid, because the reality is we were trying to do something that nobody even knew. But we said, let's have some fun doing it. So that was one perspective. Now, come back 20 years later now, when we launched Again Drinks, this was a far more measured approach. Clearly, we found there was a problem in the market. We came across the fact that there were many beverages in the market who claimed that they were healthy and tasty at the same time. But our experience when we went to retail and wanted to buy a healthy and tasty beverage was that all beverages, and you can do this test in your retail store, in your town or city, wherever you are. The beverages in India are of, actually anywhere in the world, are only of 3 types. They're healthy or tasty or neither. But there's really no beverage that does all of them. And the other thing that we found out is in India, the taste levels are, and this is something that you can check in this crowd subsequently and you'll get the answer resoundingly. Is that in India, the only taste level that matters is if it's sweet, then it's tasty. If it's very sweet, then it's very tasty. And if it's very, very sweet, then it's delicious. There's really no other taste level in India. So what we found out is that in India, to make a healthy product, you essentially have to make a tasty and sweet product. Conversely, if you make a product that is very sweet, it can never be healthy. And hence, all the beverages suffered from being either healthy or tasty. You can't crack both. So we said, no, here is a great problem to solve. Can we make a product that is reasonably tasty, extremely wholesome, completely nutritious, and scores very high on health, and yet keep the price down.
Right.
And then we added a layer saying most of the startups who were doing beverages in India at that time, 3 years back when we started working, essentially suffered from one flaw, which is all of them needed a cold chain to supply. And the cold chain is a big problem in a country like India because cold chain doesn't exist. And I think as a nation, we are going to find out how challenging the cold chain is when we start distributing COVID vaccines. Right? I mean, it's going to face an enormous problem when you realize that in a country like India, one of the reasons vaccination will be a problem is cold chain doesn't exist. Beverages, it doesn't matter because beverages are not a matter of life and death to consumers. The COVID vaccine is going to be. So we said when you build this business, we must make sure that the product doesn't require cold chain. And then we put those features together and said, if we can crack a product like this, then I think we'll be solving a great problem in the market.
Fantastic.
So what I'm trying to say is they're two different. The first one was more fun, instinctive. This one is a more measured approach. There is a problem and we tried to find a solution for it.
Right. So since I see Mr. Govind Kumar has just joined, can we have you, sir, with a question? Are you ready for the discussion now?
Yes. I'm ready for the discussion, sir.
Okay, welcome. Welcome. Feeling happy to meet you. So we started the discussion and thought of getting some insights from Mr. Vaitheeswaran out of his experience, and we were discussing how an entrepreneurial process of identifying how is the entrepreneurial process of identifying a problem to solve, and how the entrepreneur engages. And we had two different experiences from his enterprises, and since profile, and I found it very interesting. You come from the technology side, and we started the discussion from technology only. So, and we had some mixed sort of statements that can business be built around technology, whether technology comes first or market comes first, etc., etc. And there could be answers and answers to that. So, I think, how do you see technology as a business? Because you are in technology, right? So maybe we'll go a little back where we were in the beginning of the session, and then I'll take the discussion forward about enterprise creation thing.
No, that's a fabulous question, sir. I will say, right? In my opinion, right? Because I have two perspectives to share, right? One, to specifically to the point that you just asked. In any business, right, or any enterprise, customer is in the center of everything, right?
Okay.
I'll say even before the market comes, do we have a customer for us? In fact, if you look at the statistics in India and even abroad, 95% of startups fail. Right? 95% of startups and 90% of startups, maybe that number could be varying, don't even cross 2 years of existence.
Right.
And this is a fact of life, right? In many economies. And the core reason is, and if you see the core reason, there is no market demand. That is the fundamental. No, there is no customer need, because today, so customer, whatever business you're in, right? Whether you are a tech-enabled business or you are, in a legacy business where tech plays a limited role, the customer and market needs come first. That is one. The other thing is, COVID has accelerated a lot of digitization opportunities. And I'm just quoting, Bill Gates here. What Microsoft feels is, what they wanted to achieve in about 3 to 4 years, they have achieved in this COVID shutdown period, right? Not just within them, but even with their customer organizations. So the landscape is changing, right? It's moving a lot towards tech-enabled solutions, right? Even if you see Big Basket, right? FMC, they're testing huge success because of the tech enablement and the fact that so many are stuck at home, right? But there is a need. There is a market need.
Correct.
Very essential that an entrepreneur realizes that need. It's not like, because as a tech venture entrepreneur, right? I see many ventures where they have fantastic solutions, right?
Yes.
Is the market ready?
Yes.
Are the
Absolutely.
customers ready?
Absolutely.
Right. And the other thing, I will add one more perspective, sir. Is the regulatory body ready? Right?
Yeah.
Especially in the
Yeah.
area of healthcare, right? There are so many tech-enabled solutions.
Yeah.
Are they FDA approved?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
approved by the the necessary regulatory bodies? We are not there. So, which is
Yeah.
why an entrepreneur should look at all these aspects, the
Correct.
customer, market, and regulatory aspects,
Okay.
and then sees is there a fitment with
Yeah.
respect to the opportunity that he or she has identified. If this is
Correct.
not there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It will be a failure, right? It'll
Yeah.
one will be about one among the 90% or
Yeah.
95%, right? So that
Yeah.
is one perspective, sir. The
Okay.
other one is that I see that I find is as one starts working, right? I started this venture after nearly 2 decades in the corporate world, right? I feel I've spent far too much time, because if you spend too much time, right, your risk taking ability comes down. So I think as students, right, it's important they get the relevant experience and jump the entrepreneurship journey. Sir, you're able to hear me? Sir, you're able to hear me? Mr. Vaiti, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. We can't hear from Majumdar. So that's
Yeah.
also a perspective that I want to share, right, with the students, right? So the market and to the original question that Mr. Majumdar asked, the market, customer, and regulatory. This triangle, right, is very important to assess for any entrepreneurial venture, whether it's a tech-enabled or a non-tech-enabled solution. These three things need to be taken care, right, as you go about addressing the opportunity, right? So the other thing, while we wait for Mr. Majumdar, as I was the other opportunity that the aspect that I was telling, Mr. Vaiti, I think you can also chime in with your inputs, right? What is the ideal time to start a venture, right? That is also there, because MBA students, many of you would have taken loans, right? You need to address that. And entrepreneurial thing comes with its own set of challenges, right? So that is also an important aspect, right? Especially for B school grads, right? When do you really start your own venture? Is a question, is an important one that needs to be evaluated from multiple aspects.
Right. So, would you like me to respond while we wait for him?
Yes, yes. I think he
Yeah.
seems to be having some problem. You can respond, sir.
Yeah. Actually, in my view, there isn't any specific time that you should start. Um, the easy answer is to say the best start is today. But just before you joined in, I was just sharing some thoughts as to a few requirements, which means there's a problem and there's a solution, and you're passionate about solving that problem. I think those are minimum requirements by which you need to decide whether you're ready to start up. If you're asking from an age point of view, we've seen enough stories about people fresh out of college starting something and succeeding. The reality is we don't read about the other 99% who started out of college and failed.
Yep.
And therefore, we think that the best time to start is from college. That's not true. My personal suggestion would be for any student wanting to finish college and start up is that you must work for a few years somewhere.
Yep.
And the reason I say you must work somewhere is that a critical element of running a successful startup is the ability to deal with colleagues, employees, hire people. And you can learn that only by working in another organization. Otherwise, you can't just come out of college, start a company, and then figure out how to deal with employees, because it's a very, very challenging task. It takes years dealing with people successfully and making them do their best and deliver their best is a comes over years. And hence, I think working for a few it also creates networks, which has its own advantage. It also helps you get into a phase of mind saying, okay, this is an area that I'm passionate about. Perhaps this is an area that I would like to do my startup. So multiple things fall in place if you work somewhere. So my suggestion is that you should work somewhere few years before you start. The other aspect to that is it okay if is it meant startups are meant only for young people and it's not meant for old people? I'm not a believer of that. I'm going to give you a very simple sports analogy, is that when the first T20 games started, everybody said it's meant for young people. But we've seen over the years that people who are experienced with the game actually doing well, even though they're slightly older. So it's not that the game is meant for young. If you're young, you obviously bring some advantages, but if you're old, also you bring some advantages. If you take my case, I'm doing this startup now. I'm 57 years old. This is a time when people essentially want to hang up their corporate boots and take life in a far more easier manner. And I'm saying it's time to start up. But forget me for a moment. I mean, if you look at, I think KFC is a great example where the founder started this when he was in his late 50s and it went on to become a large brand. So the thing that I wanted to stress upon is that while it is important to start when you're young, I think it's important to get some experience in. Certainly, there's no limit. You can start you can be 65 years old, and if you want to start up because you got a great problem to solve, no issue. You can start up whenever you want. Like I said, the easiest answer is the best time to start up is today. Nothing better than today.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
I think Professor Satyajit is back.
Yeah, I'm in a roller coaster ride, sometimes going up and down. So sorry, we'll have to tolerate this, I guess. I'll not get into the new question. I'll just continue where I was kind of in conversation with Govind Kumarji about. You talked about regulatory system, particularly in the healthcare, and of course, regulatory system works differently at different environments or different businesses. So if I put it, because I heard Gary Hamel talking about the crossroad, I think that's what you have been referring to, different channels, and we'll have to navigate through and decide which channel is the favorable channel, I think. Straight away, I'm coming to the concept of ecosystem and where regulatory environment is favorable, not favorable, investors are interested, not interested, whatever it may be. So how do you decode ecosystem, support or otherwise? And because that's where we feel, all of us claim that the ecosystem is quite favorable at this point of time when we talk about startup, because incubation centers are there. There are several places. Funding is available, though I know that entrepreneurs don't wait for funding. Entrepreneurs start anyway whenever they feel like. But nevertheless, the basic science and technology domains probably the system should be favorable for funding and investment, etc. So this is my question to both of you. How do you decode ecosystem in today's context? And because this is a question for the potential startups who are participating in this session. And of course, my related question with Mr. Govind Kumar suggested is how do we sort of set the right context in the B school environment, because B schools are primarily placement centric. Okay, the placement is a critical element of the entire B school education system. So my supplementary question would be about how do we do it in B school environment. So these are two questions to both of you. And meanwhile, I can request the audience to kindly put their question on the chat box. Maybe we can take a few questions from the chat box now. We can involve audience in the Q&A session, and of course, researchers are also there, faculty members are also there. So over to you, sir, both of you, to contextualize the whole discussion in the ecosystem lens, and also help us to understand how we do it in B school environment. Maybe Mr. Vaitheeswaran may take this question first, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying what are the challenges that entrepreneur faces while starting up, right?
Yeah, so basically, I'm saying, how do we decode the ecosystem, supportive or otherwise? And yeah, that includes the challenges, challenges and opportunities both. The same question has come up on the chat box also. Maybe we can start with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think again, it depends on what kind of a startup it is. So if I go back to my experience of doing e-commerce in '99, there was no ecosystem. So
Right.
what we did at that time is that when we started, and we didn't realize the challenge. So we just started an e-commerce company, and then quickly we realized that nobody knew how to build an e-commerce site.
Yeah.
Nobody even knew what is a payment gateway. Nobody knew how content on merchandise and upload. So
Yeah.
most of the things we created, in fact, India's first payment gateway was created by us simply because it didn't exist at that time. So a lot of things that you take for granted today as an ecosystem for say e-commerce and for digital India, all the UPIs and all,
Yeah.
essentially started from the first payment gateway that we created in '99 along with
Fantastic.
Citibank.
Excellent.
So ecosystem was created by us because it didn't exist.
Right.
Whereas if you come today to again drinks that we're doing, are we creating an ecosystem? No, because it's just part of an existing FMCG business. FMCG businesses have been around for a
Yeah.
decade. So we're certainly not even thinking that we need to create an ecosystem. Everything
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So for example, if you want to make packaging, if you want to make sleeve, if you want to do bottling, if you want to do third-party manufacturing, if you want to do logistics, or anything that is related, or you want to hire people from say uh, colleges such as people passing out from B schools, let's say BIM Trichy.
Yeah.
You want to hire smart people who are interested in retailing or merchandising or
Right.
category management or even brand management.
Yeah.
These are standard stuff that is existing. So we're not trying to create the wheel here. We
Yeah.
just go and execute what people have written. So I think the answer to ecosystem depends on the type of startup or
Hmm.
to create. I mean, if it's an
Hmm.
existing domain, it's fairly easy. If it's a totally new domain, then I think if you're the first mover, I think your
Hmm.
challenge is not to create the enterprise first, but to create the ecosystem itself. And
Right. Right.
sometimes, valuable time can get lost in that area.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll come back to the B school, the promoting entrepreneurship B school a little later. Maybe I'll go to Mr. Govind Kumar. What's your response to this question?
Yeah, see the your question is on how to build the ecosystem in the B schools, right?
Yeah. So maybe first we can talk about ecosystem and then B school probably. Maybe we can make it in two parts. Yeah. Yeah.
See, I think I will echo Mr. Vaithe's thoughts here, right? Because it depends on the type of startup the individual is planning to start up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because whether an existing, all the delivery elements are in place or the person needs to build it is
Yeah.
something very important. See,
Yeah.
one thing I have realized is because even after having 2 decades of global experiences, knowledge is key, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I
Right.
think many individuals, many entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
even if they are reasonably successful, right?
Yeah.
They are struggling in some area of their business.
Right.
And if you actually zero down why they are suffering,
Hmm.
many times, not always, many times
Hmm.
it is lack of knowledge,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Lack
Hmm.
of awareness about how to do things differently, how to access
Yeah.
capital,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that is where figuring out the ecosystem fast, right, is a
Hmm.
very important aspect. That's why like market, customer, regulatory assessment,
Hmm.
ecosystem assessment should go hand in hand, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
not like one is done after the other.
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
in the first 3 months, right, more like a pre-launch phase,
Hmm.
you have a fair idea of what are the challenges.
Right.
Because if you see many people even outside the B schools, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
they are coming out successful, in entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
Right, and some of them don't even have the backing of their families, right? Don't come from business
Yes.
family, right?
Yes. Yes.
Small or
Yeah.
big. How are they able to do it? So that way, I feel B school grads are at least one level up, right? Compared to such people, right? Who don't have a formal education, right? Who just have this hunger to do something on their own, right?
Yeah.
Because a key point that I have realized is, right, money is an incidental thing that happens in the business. What is the value you are creating for your customers? That's the key.
Right.
Money will
Absolutely.
happen, right? Of course, every business enterprise is for money. But
Yeah.
beyond that, what is the value? I
Right.
feel if students, right, or if entrepreneurs can figure out the
Yeah.
value that they are
Mm-hmm.
offering to the customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be anything, because today there are already many industries that are there, right? So
Yeah.
how an individual is going to identify that? We all know about the blue ocean strategy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Even in an environment where we feel it's matured, nothing is there, right? There is an opportunity,
Mm.
right? And I worked in a large tech enterprise, right,
Yeah.
which I know missed out on so many opportunities,
Right.
right?
Right.
It could have been category owning opportunities, right?
Yes.
That kind of opportunities the large enterprise missed, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they were comfortable in their own cocoon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is all about coming out of the comfort zone, right? In fact, it's a
Right.
as Mr. Vaitheeswaran has also written in his book, quite a lonely battle, right? At times,
To begin with, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
identifying the ecosystem is very important. But I feel
Mm.
today's generation is fortunate, because
Mm.
when I graduated, about 20 years back,
Mm-hmm.
there was no such thing, ecosystem, and
Mm.
not a single student, okay,
Mm.
took up it.
Mm.
Forget about taking up entrepreneurship. Not
Mm.
a single student even talked about entrepreneurship,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Not a single soul talked about entrepreneurship. But today, I see that that has changed. That is the biggest change that has happened now, right?
Yes.
There
Yes.
is a lot more discussion, and the fact that something like this event is happening, is a
Mm.
testimony
Mm.
to that, right? So
True.
that itself shows that ecosystem, that awareness is improving.
It's
Can
true. Yeah.
It's
Correct.
up to the individuals now, right? The
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
challenges I face or Mr.
Yeah.
Vaiti faced, right?
Yeah.
Today's
Yeah. Yeah.
generation, today's entrepreneurs are
Yeah.
unlikely to face.
Yeah.
Of course,
Correct.
new challenges are going to be there, right?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
kind of fundamental issues we faced,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's not going to be there. Like not having a payment gateway,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Mm.
Not a soul talking about entrepreneurship, right? When you're graduating,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? So
Yeah.
I think that's the evolution that has happened, I will say, right?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Especially among the student community.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'll just kind of put a sentence to it. I think what you're trying to say is ecosystem is favorable. If ecosystem doesn't exist, one has to create it. Okay, so these are the two fundamental, I think, statements which are coming out from both of you. So my question is. Yes, we also talk about because you refer to knowledge and knowledge gaps. Okay, so maybe that when we talk about the knowledge, probably we as a teacher, we as a researcher have a role to play. So I would like to ask you, both of you rather, what do you think is the need for research here? What's the thing is the need for new knowledge creation and transfer of the knowledge in the form of education? This is my open question to both of you because we have quite a few colleagues from the research fraternity also.
Sure, sure. Maybe I will take this first,
Sure. Yeah.
responding.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
See, one area, because we work with, these young grads as interns and employees, right, with us. I find the world of marketing has changed, right? The world of marketing has changed so much. It has moved to, from the physical marketing to digital marketing. Today, our students have really grasped and understood digital marketing, the full opportunities. I'll say the answer is no. Okay. Because I don't know whether you have a solid textbook that covers all aspects of digital marketing today. And I'm saying irrespective of, the type of B schools, right? Whether it's a top rung, middle rung, lower rung, compared to someone, right, who is learning on the job. There's so much happening in the world of digital marketing. That compared to traditional marketing, digital marketing is a new animal, right? This, I will say, the world of marketing has undergone a sea change. And in fact, I will go to the extent of telling some of the interns from BIM, and few other institutions also come, right? Their exposure to digital marketing is so less compared to another individual, right, who may not be even a graduate, right, who can just be a school student.
Yeah.
The opportunity to learn, has changed tremendously, right?
Yeah.
And I will start with the marketing itself. The core marketing has undergone a sea change. The core principles remain, like the 4 Ps, right? They have not changed, but the
Correct.
medium has changed, right? And there it is so technology enabled, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
new concepts are coming, right? If you design a curriculum 1 year back, I don't think it is relevant today. Are B
Yeah.
schools prepared for
Yeah.
updating their curriculum every year?
Right.
I think I'm sure you all have the right intent, but
Hmm.
you have the infrastructure to
Hmm.
update the content every year, because that's how much the world of digital marketing is undergoing a change, right?
Right.
So that is, I will say, fundamental thing. Number two,
Okay.
if someone were to start an enterprise, what are the things he or she needs to do, right?
Hmm.
Someone
Hmm.
has needs to start a private limited company tomorrow.
Hmm.
How many bees, there are so many people attending here. How
Hmm.
many can actually, how many know, okay, the reasonable degree of certainty on
Hmm.
how to start? It's not that they are going to do everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They can make use of the ecosystem, they can make use of the service providers, but you need to
Yeah.
know whom to
Yeah.
ask, right? You need to ask, is it an LLP structure I start off
Yeah.
with? Or is
Yeah.
it a proprietorship that I start off with? Or is it a private limited?
Right.
How am I going to manage capital? How am I going to
Yeah.
manage inventory? There's a
Yeah.
lot of theory around, right?
Yeah.
But if you have to start something and run, whether the B school education equips, I don't think so.
Right. Right.
This is my second observation. The third
Yeah.
observation, again, a lot of relevance to startups, is in the area of product development.
Right.
Okay. Product or service development, right? At the core, you are trying to develop a product or service.
Hmm.
How many of them are actually trying out? How
Hmm.
many of them actually go through the process of experiential learning?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
find,
Hmm.
maybe people learn design thinking, they invite
Yeah.
someone, for guest lectures, all those things may
Yeah.
happen. But
Yeah.
is there something experientially done
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
that, they can really understand how a
Hmm.
product is developed, right?
Yeah.
How a
Yeah.
service is developed.
Yeah.
Because if these three things are there, right,
Yeah.
I feel these schools, can definitely churn out more entrepreneurs.
Perfect. Perfect. Mr. Vaitheeswaran, what's your view on this?
Uh, so I'm going to add something different to what Govind just mentioned, because whatever he
Yeah.
said is correct. So in addition, there's one point that I wanted to make. And I
Yeah.
think it's an important point. Ask this
Yeah.
whenever I talk at any B school
Hmm.
or even at engineering colleges, and the answer may
Hmm.
not be a very popular answer, but I'm going to state it. I think
Hmm.
B schools, perhaps, and this is not a problem with BIM Trichy, this is a problem with most B schools, certainly
Ah.
most
Uh-huh.
B schools in India, I think, are not equipped to creating entrepreneurs.
Right.
And it's true of engineering colleges as well.
Hmm.
And the reason I make this statement is, and it's not because there's a challenge with them. I think the course curriculum coming out of B schools, I'm
Hmm.
using B school more as a nomenclature here, but it's
Yeah.
true even for, say, tech institutes,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that the nomenclature, the curriculum is very structured.
Right.
There is a process to be followed. There are black boxes where you talk of triggers, you talk of inputs, you talk of outputs, then you vary the
Right.
inputs, the outputs change. It's
Very
very
definitive.
structured,
Yeah. Yeah.
methodical,
Yeah.
scientific in nature.
Yeah.
And
Right. Right.
entrepreneurship is nothing which is structured. And that's the whole
Correct.
challenge.
Right.
You know, the most interesting thing that I found is many B schools have this concept where they tell their students that you must think out of the box, and all the students are straitjacketed to think inside the box. And that's the challenge. That's why I think B school, the response to my statement will be, but there are so many people who are coming out of B schools who are becoming entrepreneurs. So my answer to that is, well, if they were not so straitjacketed, you'll get a lot more of them.
Yeah.
Those who come out of B schools and still go on to become an entrepreneur are those who are able to retain their ability to think outside the box despite a structured education.
Right.
Now, does it mean, therefore, that I'm suggesting that the education system needs to change? No, I think the curriculum that they're going through is very, very important. All the things that they learn, which is the accounting and the bookkeeping and the management and the marketing and the positioning and the 3Ps and the 4Ps and logistics, supply chain, I think they're all important.
Yeah.
But there must be addition to the curriculum which teaches students creativity. I think one of the flaws in Indian curriculum, especially in B schools, is there is very little, if any, of say liberal arts.
Right.
I would encourage the Indian B schools to put in lots of liberal arts into their curriculum, even if it's optional to start with. Sometimes the ability to simply learn a musical instrument, how to edit a movie,
Yes.
classic, learn 4 languages that you're never going to use, but there are interesting classical languages, keeps the fire of creativity in the mind of a student who has otherwise gone through very structured learning, such a B school.
True.
Now, these students are more likely to become entrepreneurs than a pure student who's learned the B school. That's my view. Like I said, I feel very strongly about it.
Correct. So it's a question of a mix, linearity and non-linearity. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And probably this is little gray area, right? It's not very well definable in real terms, and that's what entrepreneurship is all about. So getting into something which is unknown, right? So what you're saying, little creative thinking, as you said, out of the box and inside the box kind of stuff, right? So how you dare to get into the gray area, which is reasonably unknown, and develop some kind of conviction about it, and that's what entrepreneur journey brings in. So you mean to say, and both of you are kind of saying that that environment in the curriculum design doesn't exist, that freedom in the curriculum design doesn't exist. So do you see any knowledge gap also where the researcher should also come in? It's my question to both of you. So is there any matter to be researched, to be created in the package, in the form of a package of knowledge? Because that's what I think is also another dimension of education, to create new knowledge.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I as both of us, shared perspectives, right? The current education, right? Maybe you have a course on entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
Maybe it goes back to that fundamental thing.
Yeah.
Is the B school offering at least an elective on entrepreneurship, right? If they are at least offering an elective, right?
Yeah.
What is the kind of curriculum
Right.
there, right? And is the curriculum getting updated, right? I think those are the aspects
Yes.
that are important, right?
Yeah.
Definitely, I find at least offering, right? I know there is a lot of unstructuredness to the whole thing,
Yeah.
but B schools, if you see that, if you go back to the management education itself, right? If you go back to the 60s, people actually doubted whether MBAs, would really succeed, right? That question was there.
Yes.
Right. So it has succeeded. So similarly, I feel entrepreneurship can also be taught,
Yeah.
right? The broader contours, right? You can cover only so much, right?
Yeah.
I will emphasize more than the content on experiential learning,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
To me, I think the B school curriculum has focused a lot on case study oriented learning, which
Yes.
is good, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think it's time the B schools actually take it to the next level, which
Yes.
is about experiential learning,
Yes.
right? If it is, you have to develop a product, right? You have to launch something, you have to
Yeah.
experience digital marketing,
Yeah.
how can you do it experientially? Can you try out something on your own?
True. Very true. Very true.
Many times we hear that we don't get this internship opportunity or you don't get a job, right? But what is preventing you from trying yourself?
Yourself. Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Right?
you intern for yourself. Simple.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. That's a very interesting answer. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, in fact, there was a question sometime back that is this startup or entrepreneurship is a metro or tier one city phenomena? Is it going to the lesser known cities or tier three, tier four, whatever it may be, whichever tier we refer to in the hierarchy? But I think I have a different view because I work with a group of entrepreneurs in even the remote part of the country also. I work with few Jammu and Kashmir, the places where you hear for wrong reasons. So I had been there actually. So I'll not take up that question. Not that the question is not relevant, but I think as we were discussing ecosystem has gone far ahead. I think I see rural youth also becoming entrepreneurs. It's fine that they're not talking about the cutting edge technologies, but they are doing great things. I've seen somebody in the village setting up a audio recording room and creating a repository of folk music and putting in the YouTube, creating a YouTube channel. So I've seen those kind of enterprises also. Very, very rudimentary, but interesting enterprises. So I think it's no more a tier one city or a metro city phenomena. And I'm sure both of you would agree with me that it has gone even beyond that limits. But the questions which are coming up here is there's one question which is coming as disruptions, and we have list of you can see in the chat box the list of companies, big business houses, etc., etc. So in fact, Govind, you referred some time back the large companies sometimes will not venture out. So do you see antithesis of this question in that? Would you like to react to that question? I'm referring to the question by Rahul, the first
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Sure. See, as I said, if you see, because I worked in a large tech MNC, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you see the biggies, take IBM,
Yeah.
HP, Dell, Oracle, Microsoft. Right?
Correct.
These are the biggies. Let's look at the number of things they have missed.
Hmm.
Smartphone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
entire iPad revolution.
Yes.
OS
Absolutely.
for OS for smartphones,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
You have the cloud, the entire cloud ecosystem.
True.
Look at the number of opportunities these big tech companies have missed, right? I will
True.
add Intel to that, right?
True.
They had the best of resources,
Yes. Yes.
access to capital,
Mm.
right? In spite of that, why did they miss,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Because I will take a step back. Okay,
Mm.
if you see the average tenure of a
Yeah.
company, right? Company, I'm using the statistics that is there. Fortune 500 company, average tenure for a Fortune 500 company to be there in the Fortune 500 listing is only about
Mm.
18 to 20 years.
Yes. Yes.
Previously, it
You're
was
right.
30 to 40 years. There's so much change happening,
True.
right? I think somewhere organizations miss out. It is because organizations miss out that startups get an opportunity also,
Yeah. You're right.
right?
You're
So
right.
it's kind of paradoxical. Best
Absolutely.
of minds, right, miss out
Yeah.
on great opportunities,
True. True. True.
are lapped up by others, right? So that's the
True.
way the world moves.
Right. No, in fact, I recall the companies referred in Search of Excellence by Tom Peters. Okay, I think majority of them don't exist today, and we
Yeah,
refer them as a reference point of excellence, business excellence, right? And that's probably the first literature on very organized, well-researched literature on excellence. So that complements what you're saying.
yes,
Something is not happening, right? And
and
that's what the startup. Yeah.
and that that uh, crunching of the gap, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the how much time a company
Yes.
exists as a top company, right?
Right. Right.
That shortening of the gap, shortening of the tenure,
Yeah.
really gives opportunity to entrepreneurs, right? Like
True. True.
me,
True.
everyone here.
Right, right, absolutely. And that's what a few minutes back, Professor Mr. Vaitheeswaran was also saying, solving problem, looking at the gap and solving problem. I think somewhere it connects to the void which exists, but nobody's looking into that. Because probably it looks like very risky or something like that, right? So, Mr. Vaitheeswaran, that's the question. I would like you to kindly answer the question by Satvik, where the student says that what kind of startup students should take up, college students should pick up. Though I know the answer will be very different for different perspective, but nevertheless, would you like to answer that question?
So, if you look at, if you're asking what kind of startup you should look at while you're in college, then that's a different answer. So I'm going to answer that, because if you're finished college, then I've already answered that question saying look for a problem that you're passionate about solving.
Yes.
But if you're looking at what startup you can do while inside your college dormitory or hostel, then I think try and think of, again, you still need to look at a problem and a solution, something that people will like using and paying for.
Yeah.
It must be something you're able to manage and run inside your hostel room. I think that would be the first thing. Because you can't start something that requires you to leave your campus and go all over the place. Of course, right now, I'm not sure how many people are in college because of COVID, but assuming things pass, if you're going to spend 80% of your time inside the hostel and busy with college work, think of a startup that you can manage while doing it inside the campus itself. To me, that would be a defining box, because the reality is you're stuck for a while.
True.
And then decide what would you like to do. After you decide that, still look for something that excites you. It must be something that is of interest to you. So don't say I'm stuck in college, I want to do a startup, I'll do something that I'm not interested in. It still won't work. It still need to be of interest to you, but keep the geographical restriction in mind and start. The good news for you is that many college startups have actually gone on to become very, very large stuff.
Absolutely.
So, Google started in campus by 2 people. Facebook is the biggest success for college. Even if you go back into years to say Sun Microsystems was again, Sun Microsystems, I'm not sure many people know, but the expansion of that is actually Stanford University network. Basically, the people who put the network of computers inside Stanford University created this. What do you call it? So they call it SUN, which is Stanford University Network, which turned out to be Sun, and then left college and started Sun Microsystems. So, it's not that you can't start something in college that becomes successful. But if you look at these, all of these were stuff that they did while they were in college. They never started something that required them to leave campus. That's the key.
Yes. So I think it's also important, if I agree with you, that the college campus startups can actually experiment a lot of things. A lot of small things can be experimented. So I think the initial phase of the learning curve can be well utilized being in the campus. So did both of you did that? I think that's my question. Of course, some part of the answer you gave, but did you do any kind of nuts and bolts cracking in your dorm rooms or classrooms or whichever? Which is a phenomenon. It seems like a phenomenon these days, but did you do that?
Yeah, so let me answer that first, because my answer is very easy. My answer is no.
Okay.
I did nothing of the sort.
Yeah, no, of course, that was a different time probably. Yeah, in fact, I also belong to the same group. Yeah, we used to. I remember in my hostel room, I used to worry more about whether there would be water in the toilet or not, rather than doing something nuts and bolt cracking in the room. So
absolutely.
So some
And I
notorious guy
won't be
opened the
surprised
tap.
if students even today. I'm sure many students even today must be wondering about the same problem in some campuses.
Yeah, because those are the bigger problem to crack rather than doing something on the startup front. Okay, so some notorious guy would have kept the tap open and the entire water would have flown out. So yeah. So anyway, so my question is more from the students' perspective, and most students are there. So I think. What came very loudly from both of you is learning something which is beyond structure. Okay, though the structure is prescribed by the curriculum, but looking something beyond structure, which you said as experiential learning, trying out something. If I put it together, both the things. So and what I call as a mix of linear and non-linear. Okay, something which is defined, something which is not defined. But at the end of the day, I think what is interesting for all of us to think through is. The entire, if you would agree with me, the time is very conducive. The environment is very conducive. We talk about startup. We talk about startup in various disciplines. talk about incubators by Atal Innovation Mission. We talk about TBIs and so on and so forth, right? So, in your assessment, how much of the productive outcomes are there, and how can we improve the productivity? And I'm referring to all the stakeholders who is attending this session, right from student to the teachers to the practicing professionals, researchers. So how do we put it together to make it more productive in terms of very meaningful business enterprise coming out from all of us? I'm putting more as a societal question rather than students' question. So what's your view on that? Maybe Mr. Govind can take the question first, and then I would request Mr. Vaitheeswaran also to answer that. Yeah.
So, due to time constraints, can we take this as the last question for the panel?
I'm keeping my watch because you have given 90 minutes. So we have
Yes, sir.
consumed, we have 12 minutes left. So I'm keeping in a watch, yeah. So because I don't see many questions on chat box audience, we don't see many questions from the audience. But this is something I think need to be discussed. So I'll keep keep an eye. We have 11 minutes now. Yeah, I'll keep an eye
Yes.
on the clock. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Mr. Govind, would you like to respond to this question? I think you're muted, I guess.
Sorry. Yeah, I think we already covered many aspects, right? One is the experiential learning.
Yeah.
Second is how to bring in the unstructured element, right, of entrepreneurship, right, in
Yeah.
the thinking, and even having some courses on entrepreneurship, right, and
Yeah.
how to keep updating the curriculum on latest aspects. So these
Right.
four aspects are there. The
Yeah.
other aspects I feel I've heard that some institutions are doing to encourage entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
We let individuals to go and experiment
Yeah.
for a couple of years, right? If
Yeah.
the institute can give that assurance that in case they don't like or they fail, right, they can come back to the campus and they can attend the institute will help them to get a job, right? They can go through the campus interview process. So because the students also need some kind of assurance, so to speak, right? So that they are enthused to actually go pursue the entrepreneurship. That is one additional thing that I will say. Second is I feel even students, right? Uh, it's always you need two hands to clap, right? One, we talked about a lot about the faculty and the institute. What about the students, right? Maybe with your kind permission, sir, I just want to conduct a quick poll. How many students who are attending are planning to start a venture in 2 years from now, either now or in 2 years from now? Is it possible, sir? Can we do a quick poll?
Sir, I have given you the
I
presenter option, sir. You can click poll now, sir, in
How do
chat.
I do that? Or is there a poll? Can they raise their hand? Is it possible? Can people raise their hand?
Yes, sir.
Right? Can you please raise your hand if you're planning to start your venture? Can we know how many people have raised the hand? I think it's not possible in this year. I see 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, 8, 8 out of how many who are attending? How many are attending? Do we know the count?
It's more than 200.
So out of 200, I could count about 8, right? That also tells the interest level, right? Maybe right. This is a fact, right? Repeated in many B schools, right? One reason could be the lack of awareness, right? Lack of awareness of the opportunity, right? To start one venture, because I'm a great believer. When you are young, your ability to take risks is you can take more risks in life, right? When you're young, so you should try your own venture when you are starting off. That's the preference, I always have, right? So I think it's an interesting statistic that we have over here. So 8 out of 200. That's what 0.4%, right? Thank you.
4%, yeah.
Yeah. 4%, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we are close to the session. I'm sorry, I'm coming in and going out repeatedly. So, any last comment, Mr. Vaitheeswaran, on the subject which I raised just a few minutes back?
Yeah, so I had one point that I wanted to add to this. I think one way of making more people coming out of B schools to be interested in entrepreneurship, perhaps, is to make sure that B schools only admit students who have a minimum years of experience. It's fairly standard outside India. In Europe and America,
Yeah,
very hard to get into a decent B school without experience.
true.
In India, we've gone about it the other way around. We're saying if you have experience, I'll give you additional points. But if you do well in your entrance and you have 0 years experience, you can still get in.
Yeah.
I think as a condition, they should not allow. And what it does is that the student then goes, it's okay, you can give admission and defer the admission, saying, okay, the student is smart. Let me keep a seat open for her. You tell the student, look, I think you're a smart girl. We'd like to have you in our college, but you know what? You haven't got work experience. Why don't you go work somewhere for 2 years and come back?
Right.
And I think if a minimum of 2 years experience is insisted upon before students join, I think you'll get a better output as far as entrepreneurship is concerned, because all these people have gone to some undergraduate course, then they do MBA.
Yeah.
Most of them are clueless about how corporate are, and then we expect them to go and start something. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Some minimum exposure. Yeah.
I think so before they do MBA, because unlike other courses where you can learn from book theory,
Yeah.
the business school, the MBA is a very practical education, right? It's about how organizations
Right.
work essentially, and the best way to learn how organizations work is to work in an organization. So if you go work for 2 years and then you come back, I think the students will also be able to appreciate the MBA course much better. And hopefully many of them will come back and say, maybe I give it a shot and become an entrepreneur.
Right. I think that's a very good concluding comment. And I see a question on the chat box. So maybe I think we have covered it to some extent. This is the question about thinking out of the box and the course is to follow. I think we have answered that. So which Mr. Govind was also saying, putting it together as an experiential element. I think that's where out of the work experimentation can be thought through. So maybe 1 minute last comment to conclude the discussion. What's your message to this wide array of audience, right from student to researcher to teacher, and of course the practicing professionals also? Maybe 1 minute each. Would you like to give any last minute comment? Maybe we can start with Mr. Govind. Are you there, Mr. Govind? Mr. Vaitheeswaran, would you like to comment?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, my simple comment, closing comments to people on this audience, students especially, and others, is broadly three things. One is, don't worry about domain expertise. I think too much is made about domain expertise, saying that, okay, I'm a tech person, I have to do a tech startup. I'm from a financial background, I do a financial startup. I don't think you should worry about it. I think if you find something that is exciting enough to solve, don't worry about the domain. You can still be an entrepreneur in that area. So that would be one broad comment. The second broad comment is, India today is very, very different, right? From where we said 20, 30 years back. And when you look back on your career, and I'm sure all of you will go and have very glittering, successful careers, but you must be able to look back. You should not look back with regret saying, okay, I've done all of this. I've earned so much of money. I've created great wealth. I've got a good, happy family. But you should not regret saying, but I never tried doing anything on my own.
Right.
And it's not that everybody is made up. And I understand 90% of people are probably not interested in being an entrepreneur. That's fine. Many of them may come from economic backgrounds that does not help them being an entrepreneur. That also I understand. But if those are not issues, if you ever get a chance to do a startup, you must do it. I mean, worst case, what will happen? You'll fail, right? I mean, that's the worst that can happen. You can go back and work, because in India today is very different from what it was.
Yes.
And the third and the last thing is, most of us somehow have this thing about looking up at the government and keep saying, where are the jobs? I firmly believe it is not the government's job to provide jobs. I think we have to get out of this nonsense. The government's job is not, it's not the government job to provide a job.
Yes.
Government job is to enable people like you to go create jobs.
Absolutely.
So if you're a good school student, don't ever fall for this thing saying this government is not doing job. That it is not, why should the government create jobs? I think you're an MBA student, you go create jobs. If the government is not helping you create a business to create jobs, then you can create. But don't complain there are no jobs being created. It's not the government job to create jobs. It's your job to create a job. That's all.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's fantastic concluding comment. So would Mr. Govind like to give last minute comment, and then we can close the session probably. I think he's on mute. Because I have serious network problem today. I don't know why. So anyway, I think since we have come very close to the closing time, so thanks to both expert panel members, Mr. Govind and Mr. Vaitheeswaran. We had really very productive discussion, and we tried to address the content which concerns all of us, students mostly, of course, the faculty members, the researchers, the teachers, and how do we think about curriculum design, how do you create a conducive environment, how do you support enterprises as a part of the curriculum design and curriculum delivery. So I think we have talked several things, and I'm sure there would be some takeaway for all the segments of participants who were there. So thanks, the expert panelists, thanks BIM, and thanks Mr. Satya, Professor Satya, for bringing us together. I enjoyed the conversation, though I had several difficulties in staying in the session on the virtual mode. But nevertheless, really the conversation was very interesting, very productive. So thank you very much, all of us. Over to you, Shivani. We are dot at 6 to close the session, right? I'm on time.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very insightful discussions, right from what is the ideal time to start a business for the MBA student, and all the points which were discussed in this discussion were very, very insightful. And now I would like to call upon Professor Satya to give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I take this opportunity to thank the panelists, Dr. Satyajit Majumdar, Mr. Vaitheeswaran, and Mr. Govind Kumar, for having spent their valuable time on this panel discussion on entrepreneurship and ecosystems. When we talked about this theme for this conference on globalization versus localization in the age of disruption, we thought that any conference on this topic cannot be complete without a discussion on the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and startup. That's how we pulled together Dr. Satyajit Majumdar, who is an expert in social entrepreneurship sector. Mr. Vaitheeswaran himself has been the founder of e-commerce space in India, and Mr. Vaitheeswaran, an alumni of BIM Trichy, has been in the entrepreneurship space for quite some time now. So we thought we will request all of them to pull together and share their thoughts. Dr. Satyajit Majumdar has guided all the panelists, sharing his thoughts in terms of structuring and guiding the flow of the entire discussion. On behalf of the students, the faculty, and the director of BIM Trichy, we extend our deep sense of gratitude to each one of you for spending your time with us.